Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, DFLers. 6 years ago in Rochester, when I accepted your endorsement, I made you a promise. I promised that I'd take back the seat that had been held by three great DFL senators, Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale, and Paul Wellstone. And I did. I just didn't say by how much. Today in Duluth is once again my honor to accept your endorsement, and I'm going to make you another promise. I'm going to win again in November. And this time, I'll even tell you the margin. By more than last time. I want to start by thanking Amy Klobuchar. Man, that was a great speech. You know, when I was in a tough campaign, she was a, if not the, critical supporter. When I got elected, she was a role model. And over the past 5 years, she has been the best partner and mentor that I could possibly ask for. And of course, I want to thank Franny. My better half for almost 40 years, and the reigning apple pie champion of the bean feed circuit. But most of all, I want to thank the people of Minnesota, not just for giving me the opportunity to work for you, but for inspiring me every day to work harder. I want to tell you about one of the Minnesotans who inspired me. I met Katie Johnson at a round table. She told me she was a single mother of two and that her life had gotten out of control because her oldest, a 7-year-old boy named Cameron, had gotten out of control. He was out of control. Fortunately, he was attending school in the Mountains View School District, and the superintendent there had put into place a model for mental health in schools. What they did was they taught every adult in the school, from the bus driver to the teacher, to the lunch lady, to the custodian, to be able to identify or see what it looked like when a kid had a mental health issue. And that adult would go to the school counselor or the school psychologist and ask that professional to talk with the kid. And if that professional decided that that kid needed access to the community mental health system, they would provide that. And that's what they did for Katie's son, Cameron. They assigned a mental health advocate for him, and Katie told me that this woman, the mental health advocate, had become her best friend, and that they diagnosed Cameron, and he had ADHD and Asperger's. And they got him the treatment he needed, and it turned him around. It changed his life around. Katie told me at this round table that now Cameron was doing well in school, and not only that, he had begun to take Taekwondo. And this is over a year ago. Now he is a red belt in Taekwondo. And Katie looked at me, and I will never forget this. She looked straight at me and she said, "Now I'm bulletproof. I can do anything." But not every kid suffering from a mental illness gets the help he or she needs. Not every story like Cameron's has a happy ending, so I went to work. I introduced a bill, the Mental Health in Schools Act, to help more school districts implement programs like the one in Mounds View. I talked to my colleagues. We discussed it in hearings. I consulted with mental health experts. I went to schools and listened to principals and teachers and therapists and parents like Katie. And in this year's appropriations, we got nearly $55 million in new funding for mental health in schools. Now, not everything we wanted, but enough to help a lot more kids like Cameron get the care that they need, and enough to help a lot more parents like Katie feel bulletproof. When I get back to Washington, I'm going to keep working to do even more. And that's the job. It's not about winning an argument. It's not about proving a point. It's not about getting on TV. It's about seeing what Minnesotans are doing right and listening to what they need and working to get it done. I have spent time with farmers on their land. Many of you are here, where you are using new technologies to turn biomass into fuel and into electricity, and wind into electricity, and cow manure through anaerobic digesters into electricity. And that's why I wrote the energy section of the Farm Bill, so that Minnesota can be the renewable energy epicenter of America. I've spent time with a lot of college students who are going to school full-time and working 20, 30, even 40 hours a week. Some of them tell me they're selling their blood. Selling their blood. That's why I fought, and why Amy fought, to increase Pell Grants. And why I fought, and Amy fought, to stop student loans from skyrocketing, and why I want to make it easier for students and graduates to refinance their debt. And why I'm looking forward, and I'm working to make college more affordable for every Minnesotan. I've listened to horror stories about survivors of sexual assault who had to go through the worst trauma imaginable and then got handed the bill for their own rape kit. That's why I made sure that that will never happen to any woman ever again. I've spent time with business owners who can't find skilled workers to fill high-tech manufacturing jobs, and with the workers who are gaining those skills thanks to partnerships between businesses like those and community and technical colleges all across Minnesota, from Mankato to Faribault, to Fridley, to Alexandria, to Brainerd, to right here in Duluth. I've seen firsthand what Minnesotans need to fill the skills gap. And that's why I've made workforce development a top priority, so we can fill those jobs and put Minnesotans to work, and why I fought to get support for those partnerships included in the new Workforce Investment Act. I am passionate about this job because I have seen how it matters to Minnesotans, and I am just getting started. If you go to any DFL event like this one, you'll probably hear a speaker to quote Paul Wellstone, "We all do better when we all do better." We've all heard it, we all know it, we all agree with it, but something interesting. If you say it outside of Minnesota, and I do a lot, people are really struck. The simplicity of it, the poetry of it, the truth of it. We all know that when everyone has the opportunity to get a great education, we're all better off. We all know that when everyone can live in a safe neighborhood with clean air and clean water, we all benefit. We all know that we all do better when everyone gets paid enough to put a roof over their family's head. And to send their kids to college. It's unbelievably simple. It's unbelievably powerful. And it's just plain unbelievable that so many of our friends across the aisle can reject it so completely. They live by another mantra. We all do better when those at the top do better. We live in a country where the top 40 hedge fund managers make as much as 300,000 teachers. And yet too many in the Republican Party think that it's those guys who need the tax relief. Meanwhile, a majority in the Supreme Court is intent on giving them even more power to influence our political system. I ran for the Senate because I wanted to give working families a voice in the debate. But even in the time that I've been there, powerful billionaires and special interests have only turned up the volume on their megaphones. We're seeing a perfect example of that play out right now. Comcast has 114 lobbyists on Capitol Hill. I used to say 107. That was just a month ago, but evidently they thought they needed reinforcement. So it's 114 now. And everybody expects with that kind of firepower, their acquisition of Time Warner Cable will go through with no problem. Well, I have a problem with it. Minnesotans have seen their cable bills skyrocket in recent years, and this deal would mean even higher prices with less choice and even worse service. Look, Comcast has a bottom line to protect, and those 114 lobbyists, it's their job to protect it. But Minnesota families have a bottom line too, and protecting their bottom line, that's my job. That's why I reached across the aisle to fight back against one of the biggest scams on Wall Street. The credit rating agencies who gave AAA ratings to junk and helped cause the financial meltdown, costing Minnesotans their jobs, their businesses, their life savings, and their homes. That's why I'm fighting to protect your privacy so that big corporations can't make money off of your personal information without your permission. And that's why I'm going to work as hard as I can to stop this Comcast deal. We are all inspired by Paul's vision. But it's not enough to believe it. We have to lead on it. We have to live by it. We have to defend it, or we will lose sight of the country that our conscience calls us to be. That's part of my job, and for the next 157 days, it's part of your job too. You know, Franny and I became grandparents for the first time last year. Our grandson Joe celebrated his first birthday just yesterday. And every time I look at him, I wonder what his future is going to hold. What he's going to be passionate about. Now, Amy said this. Amy said that what she likes about me is every time I talk about Paul, I start to cry. I was given a eulogy or some remarks on Jim Oberstar a couple weeks ago, and Amy had spoken first, and I spoke. And I started to get choked up. And Amy, God bless her, knows she's off camera. And I'm just starting to tear up, and she knows me. She starts going like this. Stop crying, Al. Stop crying. Okay. Let me try this again. Every time I look at my grandson, I wonder what his future is going to hold. What's he going to be passionate about? What's he going to be good at? What's this little guy going to be when he grows up? And I frankly can't wait to find out. But I do know this. Joe is a lucky kid. Hey, he's got a U.S. Senator for a grandfather. And better, he's got Franny for a grandma. And he has two wonderful parents who love him so much and who've been pretty lucky themselves. They've had great educations. They've got good jobs. They don't have to go to bed at night worrying about what kind of future they'll be able to provide for their son. So when I look at little Joe, all I see are the possibilities. But you know what? That's how it's supposed to be for every kid. And that's how it used to be for middle-class families in this country. When my brother and I were growing up in St. Louis Park, in the second alphabet, it didn't matter that neither of our parents went to college. It didn't matter that our dad's quilting factory went under. It didn't matter that we weren't affluent. I was growing up middle class in America, at the height of the middle class in Minnesota. I felt like the luckiest kid in the world because I was. All I could see were possibilities. For a long time, that was what you got when you worked hard and played by the rules. You could provide for your family. You got the chance to take a risk on yourself and reach for something big. And you could know that life would be better for your kids. We have got to get back to that. And I believe that we can. I believe that we can if we make the right choices. We need more jobs. Do we create them by giving more tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires? Or do we try to create them by investing in education and infrastructure and research and development? We need to cut spending. Do we do it by cramming more kids into our classrooms and waiting longer to repair our roads and bridges? Or do we do it by letting Medicare negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies for better drug prices? And getting rid of wasteful subsidies for oil companies? We need to build a healthcare system worthy of Minnesota's world-class doctors and hospitals and innovators. Do we get there by putting insurance companies back in charge and letting women once again be charged more than men because they're women? Do we do it by taking coverage away from millions? Or do we do it by working to implement the Affordable Care Act and fix it where it needs to be fixed? 97% of full-time working women work in occupations where they earn less than their male counterparts. Do they deserve equal pay? DFLers raised the minimum wage in Minnesota, but around the country, minimum wage workers are putting in 40 hours a week and still living in poverty. Should they get a raise too? We used to invest in our country, in our roads and bridges and airports and harbors. Minnesota knew the value of those investments better than most because we had Jim Oberstar. And Jim knew it better than anybody on the planet that investing in our country will propel our economy. These choices will determine our future, and they will define this election. This is Minnesota's chance to decide. Do we want a senator who stands with the Koch brothers and the Wall Street banks, or do we want a senator who stands up for the middle class? That's what this election is about. It's about whether Minnesota will have a senator who supports a woman's right to choose. It's about whether Minnesota will have a senator who thinks that working people should have the right to organize. It's about whether Minnesota will have a senator who wants to fix our broken immigration system. It's about whether Minnesota will have a senator who believes in science and understands that climate change is threatening our planet and our way of life. It's about whether Minnesota has a senator who understands that the internet belongs to all of us and that we have to keep it that way. It's about whether Minnesota will have a senator who will fight for Minnesota veterans and Minnesota seniors and Minnesota farmers and not for Washington special interests. All of that will depend on the choice Minnesotans make when they go to the polls 157 days from now. And it's not my hard work that's going to decide this election, it is yours. It's all the phone calls you're going to make. It's all the doors that you are going to knock on. And it's all the neighbors that you are going to talk to. If we organize, and if we mobilize, and if we stand up and fight for the vision that we all believe in, then we are going to win this thing. Six years ago, while I was campaigning around this state, I had the chance to spend some time with David Wellstone. And one day I said to him, David, I heard this thing about your dad, and I got to ask you. I heard that your dad had so much energy that when you kids played soccer, when your brother and you and your sister played soccer, that during the game, your dad would follow the ball wherever it went, running up and down on the sidelines wherever the ball was. Is that true? And David said, yeah, but get this. I used to run cross country. And my dad used to run the entire course. Off the course, but, alongside me. And I'd get 300 yards from the end, and I'd be 10 yards behind the leader. And my dad, running alongside me, would start yelling, "You can do this. You can take this guy. You can take him. You can take this guy. You can take him. You can take this guy." Now, imagine how weird that was to the other kid. But David said, "Damned if I wouldn't take that guy." I need all of you. I need all of you to be my Paul. Will you be my Paul? Will you be my Paul? Will you make those phone calls? Will you knock on those doors? Will you be my Paul? Will you help me win this thing? Will you help me win this thing? Thank you.